Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan review for chapter 2. There's no Word document in this. It's just going to be me asking a bunch of questions and you trying to answer them, and I'm going to be writing out some stuff. So the first question I have is, what is the particle O? Okay, what's the particle O? Okay, so I hope that you answered that the particle O comes before nouns and noun phrases. It's an indicator of a noun or noun phrase. Okay? What is the presentative sentence structure? What is the presentative sentence structure? The presentative sentence structure is my particle O, and then I present something like a car or something that's a noun. Anything that I fill in after this particle O is basically just a presentative sentence structure. How do I say the negative presentative sentence structure? Well, if I want to negatively present something, then I put an a lay and then the particle O, and then whatever I'm negatively presenting. So if I'm saying that thing is not a car, okay, well that's not, I guess, the presentative section. If someone said, what is that? You could say that's not a car, you know, so something similar to that. Okay? Okay, what is the equative sentence structure? What is the equative sentence structure? And if you need to pause while you're thinking about these, please do. Okay, the equative sentence structure is a particle O, and then I present something, and then I have a second O, and then I say whatever that thing that I presented right here, whatever I presented is equal, that's the way that I like to think of it, the equative equal to whatever I say here. So that thing is a red car, or something like that. Or it's an is or are statement, okay? It's an is or are statement. The one thing that you need to be cautious with is with these is or are statements is in this sentence structure, the equative sentence structure, there are no verbs, okay? So when you have a verb, you can't use this sentence structure. Okay, so let's move on. What is the negative equative sentence structure? Well, I could do it one of two ways. The normal way is going to be I present something and then I say a let o, just like in the negative equative sentence structure, and then I say whatever that thing is not equal to. So that thing is not a red car. Okay, but the thing that in Samoan is I could also do it another way. I could say a let o, so not a car, and then the second o is an is or are statement, is that thing. Okay, something to that effect. Okay, so hopefully you're remembering all of this. If not, then I encourage you to go back and review on your own. Okay, what are determiners? What are determiners? Okay, so determiners are things that determine the plurality of your noun. Okay, so I could have a particle O, and then I could have a determiner right here, and then my noun. And that will determine the plurality, and also if it's a determinant, or sorry, if it's specific or non-specific. Okay, so there's different types of determiners, and there's definite or indefinite, or specific and non-specific is the way that I like to think of it. Okay, so and the other question is, what are they? Like, what specific determiners have you learned so far? So the determiners that you've learned so far are lay, a lack of a determiner, ni, and say. Okay, so just a review of these real quick. Lay right here determines that the noun that it precedes or comes before is both singular and definite or specific. I like specific. Then the lack of a determiner means that it's plural and specific. Okay, the ni right here makes it plural again, and it's non-specific, and the say right here is singular and non-specific. So the two specific ones are here, and the two non-specific ones are here. Then the two plural ones are here, and the two singular ones are there. If that was too fast, then I encourage you to rewatch that or go back to my basic grammar video. Okay. The next question is going to be, what are adjectives? What are adjectives in general? That's more of an English question, I guess. An adjective is something that describes a noun. So I'll have these nouns, right? I'll have nouns. We've been talking about the particle O and nouns that come after them and determiners that determine the plurality and if the noun's specific or not. So we'll have these nouns. And the things that come after them are what? Adjectives. Adjectives come after nouns in Samoan. So anything that describes a noun is an adjective, and those always come after those. Adjectives always follow nouns in Samoan. Okay? So then the next question is, what is an adverb? So an adverb, and what is it? Well, it's similar to an adjective. It describes or modifies another verb, or even a noun or another adjective. Okay? So where do they come? So you'll have a verb. In most cases, it'll be a verb and then my adverb. I'm just going to put adverb. And then, or I could have another adjective or even another adverb. I could have two adverbs in a row, okay? And then an adverb will come after all of those. What are the three exceptions? Okay, so all of my adverbs come after those things, my verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. But there are three exceptions. There are three exceptions that come before those things. What are they? Well, hopefully you remembered lay. Okay, and then the next one is matua. Matua. Okay, and the third one is toy. Okay? And then another question is, what are the meanings of these three? So lay means not, or it negates the noun, or the verb. Okay? When it's in a noun form, it's usually leo. Okay? So that's kind of a negative presentative or a negative equative example. Then I'll have matua, that means what? Very, extremely, really, something like that. And toy means again. So hopefully you remember these things. The next question is going to be, what is the emphatic, or what are emphatic pronouns? What are emphatic pronouns? Okay, and then the other thing is, do you know all 11 of them? There's 11 pronouns. And I'm not going to go through those. If you don't know those, then you need to go back to that video and brush up on that chart again. The next question is, where do emphatic pronouns go? Okay, so that kind of leads into my next question is, what is the shortened version of the emphatic sentence structure that I gave you? Not the real emphatic sentence structure, but the shortened one that kind of helps you remember how the sentence structure goes, that I made up myself. So that's tense marker, then action, then doer, okay? And the thing with this is it's not a real sentence structure, it's just to help you remember the order, okay? To this day, I still think of this, and it helps me remember. I don't have to use it, but when I'm explaining it, you'll get to that point too where you don't need to use it. It'll already be ingrained in your mind. But when I explain it, I usually think, okay, tense marker, action, doer, and then I go on from there. It kind of helps warm my brain up to the actual sentence structure. So, and if you wanted to, you could switch this action for what? A verb, okay? And this doer for what? The subject, okay? So it could be tense marker, verb, subject, if you want, okay? So then the next question is, what are the difference between transitive and intransitive verbs? Transitive and intransitive verbs. So let me write those out really quick. So I'm just going to write trans and intrans. Okay, so trans means intransitive, and trans means transitive. Okay, so what's the difference between these two? Well, hopefully you remember transitive needs an object. So this one has objects. and this one doesn't need objects. Okay, it doesn't need objects. Okay, so that changes our sentence structure. So our actual emphatic sentence structures go along with what kind of verb I'm using. So if I have a transitive verb, then I'll use the transitive sentence structure. And the reason that makes sense because my sentence structure is obviously going to change because it has an object in it. And then my intransitive sentence structure is going to change because it doesn't have an object in it. So that, hopefully that makes sense to you. Okay, the next question is, what is the transitive sentence structure? So, sentence structure. What is the transitive sentence structure? The actual one, okay? So hopefully you remember this, and that is my tense marker, okay? My tense marker. Then my predicate phrase, okay? And predicate phrase. And then the thing that follows the predicate phrase is my E that marks the doer. And I taught it to you this way, so it's noun, phrase, doer. Then noun, phrase, done to, okay? Done to. And if I wanted to, I could replace this noun, phrase, doer with the subject, and I could replace this noun, phrase, done to as the object. It's the same thing. The noun, phrase, done to is the object, and the noun, phrase, doer is the subject. And the reason why I have this E that marks my doer is because there's two different noun phrases, okay? That's the way that Samoans see it. There's two different noun phrases here, and my E will tell you which one's the one that's doing the action, and then the other one that doesn't have an E with it is the one that's acting as the done to or the object. So the one that has the E is the subject, and the one that doesn't have the E is the object. And I could switch these around. If I wanted to, I could do this. I could do the object. I could do the object or the done to, and then I could do an E. Then I could do a subject. I didn't really go over that, but that is something that is very possible. You can do that, okay? So hopefully you remember that. And then the next thing I'm going to ask you is, what is the intransitive sentence structure? So let me just write that out really quick. So intransitive sentence structure, okay? And what is that? So the difference between this is there's no object or done to, and all I do is I say tense marker, predicate phrase, predicate phrase, and then, just going to leave it like that, predicate phrase, and then my doer or my subject, I'm going to put subject, subject, and then my prepositional phrase. And the one thing that I do need to clarify, I didn't write it, is in my intransitive sentence structure, I have a prepositional phrase right here. And also, I could also have a prepositional phrase in my transitive sentence structure. I neglected to write that, but I could also have a prepositional phrase at the end of my transitive sentence structure as well. Sorry, I didn't write that and include that. Okay, so we're getting quite a bit of stuff reviewed. There's a lot of material in this chapter, just like every other chapter. The next thing that you need to answer is prepositions. Okay, what are prepositions in the first place? Oh, whoops. So what are prepositions in the first place? Okay, so prepositions are things that describe to you what or where the location of whatever is taking place. Okay, so prepositions, that's what my prepositional phrase is. It could be things like under, over, in, at, things like that. Okay, so prepositions describe where the action is taking place in a lot of cases. Okay, so prepositions, so I have different forms of prepositions, and the preposition that I want to ask you is, what kind of preposition do I use with common nouns and also places? Okay, so what preposition do I use with common nouns and places? Okay, so the preposition I use with common nouns and places is E, and sometimes I'll throw on a macron on front, and the difference between having the macron and not is the macron kind of acts as that arrow that I was telling you. You're not at the place yet. You're heading towards that place. So things like to the store or things like that. And then when I take away that, it's like saying at the store. You're already there, or on the box, or in the cart. Whatever, you're already there, okay? So the next thing is, what kind of preposition do you use when you have proper nouns? I'm not going to write it out this time. Proper nouns besides places, and then dual and plural pronouns. What kind of preposition do I use? Okay, that one would be ja, and sometimes, again, I'll throw on that macron, and sometimes I'll have it not on. And when I have the macron and I'm heading towards that place, I'm not there yet. It's normally to or into. And then the one without the macron is you're already there. Okay? And then the last preposition that we've taught you so far is, I guess I gave you part of the answer already, is what is the preposition used for singular pronouns? Okay, so the singular pronouns will be yate, or, again, you could also take this away right here. Okay, so that is your prepositions, and we'll move on. Okay, so the next thing that I want to go over is, and we don't have time to go over that, but do you know how to successfully pluralize verbs and adjectives? Okay, so that's something that if you're having a hard time with knowing when to use plural adjectives or adverbs, or verbs, then you need to go back to that video. That video was had a lot of meat in it. It had a lot of material. I know, but you need to go back to that and review that because we don't have time to review all of that. The one thing that I will say is that you need to have subject. Let me grab my pen. Subject, verb agreement. Okay. Subject-verb agreement. If you don't remember what that is, then you need to go back to that video as well. But the reason why we have to pluralize some of our verbs and adjectives and adverbs in some cases is because of subject-verb agreement. Okay, so moving on, I want you to tell me the difference between sa and na, both of them being tense markers. So my tense marker sa is considered the indeterminate past. Okay, they're both past tense markers. Indeterminate, and that means that it's kind of set in an unrestricted time. Okay, and then my na is called my determinate past, and it's in a restricted time. So when I say na, I can kind of visualize when that sentence is being said at the time that it's being done. But when it's not that, then I use sa. It's kind of fuzzy exactly when it took place, but it was in the past. Okay. If that doesn't make sense, you need to go back to that video as well. Okay, moving on. The last thing I want to cover is how do I form questions in Samoan? And there's two different answers. Okay, there's a formal way and there's more of a casual way, I guess, a more day-to-day way. Okay, so the way that I do questions in Samoan is I can use pe or po. This is the more formal way. You'll normally only see this in written Samoan. You'll see this sometimes in talk, in regular speech. The second way is you'll have your intonation raised right before the end and lower right at the end. So in English, I do this. I say, where are you going? Okay, I raise my intonation. In Samoan, I do, where are you going? Okay, where are you going? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Where are you going? Okay, so that's the way, this peak right here is the way that you do it. You're not monotoned when you speak a question in Samoan. That's for statements. When you say a question in Samoan, you're flat, and then right before then you raise it a little bit. Where are you going? Okay, so I know that it doesn't sound exactly like that. I was exaggerating a little bit, so it would be like, where are you going? Okay, so ofe ete aluyai. Okay, so hopefully that made sense, and that is our review. So hopefully you were able to get most of that. If you did, move on to the next chapter. If not, then I encourage to review a little bit. It'll help a lot before moving on to the next chapter. Okay, until next time, guys. Tofa soifua.